Thank you. And good morning, actually, from Vienna. It's 7 o'clock, and it's very nice to be participating at this conference. And yes, my name is Marijana Sreckovic, and I'm from TU Wien. I'm working at the Institute of Industrial Building and Construction. And it's a pleasure to present to you findings actually from research projects that we have been conducting at our institute, which deal with processes and blockchain, as the title itself says it. So how did it all start? We actually had funding for a transnational project, which we did together with our colleagues from Ruhr-Universität Bochum, with Markus König and his team. And we looked at the life cycle of buildings, starting, of course, with the design phase, construction phase, operation phase, and now with a second project, which is dealing with the end-of-life phase. So in this first part, which started in 2019 already, we tried to let's say, define processes which are happening in these different phases. And as you will see, they are, of course, very, very different. So our project was BIM design. The project from Professor Markus König is BIM contracts, which I think you already heard a lot about. And other colleagues from our university had a project which is called FM Chain. And now I'm again leading a project which is called Digital Cycle. So we know, everybody knows here, I guess, I don't need to repeat it in a huge, let's say, setting, but we know that in connection with BIM, the potential of blockchain can lie in the record of changes, the traceability of modification and updates, which could make, of course, all the activities more transparent and even automated, of course, with smart contracts. And I'm not going to go into detail concerning the construction phase. I will tell you a little bit more, of course, about the design phase. So if you look at the whole framework, which we developed at that time together with our colleagues, we were thinking about, okay, what kind of activities or what kind of processes are relevant for the designer and what kind of processes are relevant for the constructor or the construction company. And we actually found out that it's important to have some kind of transparent decisions and traceability in order to have design approvals. So this is what we actually were focusing on when looking at the different stakeholders and different processes which are happening in the design phase. And which means we wanted to make our let's say, activities which were happening more transparent and more traceable. So we needed to find some kind of patterns or in order to see how some kind of smart contracts would even be possible to implement in that kind of phase. So the problem was that, of course, you need to look at blockchain context dependent, which means we know that in the design phase, you have a lot of workflows, you have a lot of stakeholders. You have also the fact that you don't have, for example, so many automatic payments or necessary payments. You have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 payments during the whole design phase, which means you cannot look into the design phase without looking at all different kinds of activities happening with a BIM model. But if you have a BIM model, you know that you have a lot of things happening at the same time. For example, we have activities design approve of certain models which are happening, for example, 100 times. So what kind of patterns would you need to develop in order to, let's say, have some kind of implementation possibilities for smart contracts? So these were the questions that we were asking ourselves. And there's also specificity, which we know that exists. You have different standards which are implemented in different countries. For example, in the English-speaking countries, you have the RIBA, then in Austria, you have the Hawaii, and so on. So we also know that traditional processes are very slow and also can slow down innovation, which led us to the thought, of course, that you need to somehow improve the processes or change them. And we also thought that, of course, if you look at different kinds of projects, you know that collaboration documentation is happening usually traditionally in a sense. We have meetings, we have documented protocols, which can be analog or digital, but nevertheless, from the protocols itself, you sometimes cannot really see what kind of obstacles are existing or how many times you're communicating in the for example, in the exchange of data in the BIM model itself. So the question is how can we make it more traceable? How can we make it more transparent from these kind of documents? So we knew that we needed to find some kind of modularization and partition this, let's say, complex processes into visible design rules. And we started analyzing certain processes and deconstructing these kind of workflows into sub-processes on, let's call it the atomic level, which we also call the activity. And as you can see, we developed, or we have seen that you can divide workflows into patterns, either concerning activities or concerning models, which helped us to develop a methodology, which we called 3A, process recognition. And how did we do it? We had two huge use cases of two buildings. As you can see, one was an office building, one was a residential building. And in these two projects, we managed to look through like 500 different protocols, which was really a strenuous work because it took a lot of time. But nevertheless, we managed to transfer or these kind of activities or activity patterns into UML activity diagrams, as you can see, where we were able to, let's say, extrude just basic activities which were happening, which was also a very, very strenuous work. But nevertheless, as you can see from our analysis here, certain activities which were happening much more often. For example, sending and approving certain design steps, or modifying and sending and so on. And if you look here at the actor sequences, you can see that a lot of communication or collaboration was happening between the designer or between the domain planners or different kind of planners. So this helped us to say, okay, we need to look at problems which are existing, where we have the activity is unclear, which is happening, who is sending what. Sometimes also from this kind of protocol, we had the terminology also diverse, and the communication activities were not happening directly, and this was all not documented. So we thought, okay, we can develop a design framework, which would be again split up in this method that we developed, actor, asset, and activity. That's why it's called the 3A method, where you see certain things happening between the client, the general practitioner or general architect, general planner, then also domain-specific planners, and so on, and between the client. And you can really, let's say, simplify all the activities in certain patterns. And what happens is that we managed also to design a BIM design framework where you can see the activities happening also with a common data environment, where you have any version of digital assets could reference the previous one, and this creates actually a transparent design workflow progress. So which means that the data which is stored on the blockchain is then also can also be traced like through the hashes and everything, in the sense that you exactly would know what was happening when and who was doing what, which makes the whole workflow process in the design phase very transparent. And the data that was necessary for the process is, for example, exchanges that happening between the client, the general planner, and the domain-specific planners. All would be stored in a common data environment, where you can find also other information like the list of services, the model itself, bill of quantities. But this framework that we developed makes it really easy to follow all the activities which are relevant or necessary in the process. What did we do, or what we use in our protocol? We use the baseline protocol standard, where we have a common data environment which is connected to the baseline service. The building model originates from Revit. The building data is stored locally. the data is secured on the blockchain. And the baseline services manage also the exchange of data between the organization. So in order to have the interaction between the common data environment and novel baseline service, we use a web user interface, which is actually an intuitive process which allows you to follow the design process as well, step by step. And we use also the Speckle API to implement the functionalities. So how does it look like? If you use this framework, you log into this framework, then you can create a new task for a designer. For example, if you have a communication here between the architect and the structural engineer, they can create a new task, for example, to create a new concept for a wall design. And then this would be uploaded, and you can see it in the model viewer if it's correct or not, or if it needs to be changed. And then you can also track the messages concerning the certain step that has been now conducted in this framework, and also have some kind of analytics concerning the workflow that has been happening. So this is very short because the time is so constricted concerning the BIM design project. And the follow project, which we are working on now, is called Decycle, and it's actually a project which is with our industry partners as well, as you can see, a lot of them. What are we doing here now? We are analyzing we are actually trying to rethink the whole process is happening in the end of life phase. And just to show you very short, we're also trying to here have some kind of structuralization of the parameters and conditions which are already existing in this end of life phase. We want to try this to couple the certain data that is needed for the end of life phase for building, for reuse and recycling, with the building information modeling, to support it also again with smart contracts and blockchain, and also couple it with the already developed framework in the BIM design project. So as you probably all know, the digitalization in the end of life, or when the building comes to the end of, or when the building is actually after the operational phase, where you need to think about either refurbishing it, reusing it, or even deconstructing it, you need some kind of also digital data in order to let's say, have some kind of predictions, or even to know what is happening with, for example, the material or the reused element in the follow-up project and so on. But the problem is there's really not a framework which enables, not yet, let's say, a connection with BIM, building information modeling, and the end of life, or at least it doesn't exist really. So this is also a huge obstacle. So the question is, how do you digitalize these kind of processes? And even if you just look at examples such as reusing of elements, you see you have a lot of, again, processes and activities happening, like harvesting. Then you need a database. Then you need to, again, think about the next project where you want to, let's reuse a certain element, a window or flooring or whatever. Then you have some kind of processes which need to have in order to implement that. And then also the question is, what kind of product can you use? So just to make it very short, because I think my time is almost up. We analyzed, for example, here the use case where we have a company which is specifically dealing with the reuse of elements. And as you can see, it's very complex. And the question that you pose yourself is, okay, how would there be a possibility to implement digital technologies such as blockchain and smart contracts? What would it make sense to do that, actually? And you can see here we have the company which is extracting the material or the element from the building which is going to be deconstructed. Then they have to document that. Then they have to make the transportation or the logistics for that element. And then they need to think about what can they do to that. Do they want to sell it, or do they want to reuse it in another project? And again, if you use our framework that we have developed in the BIM design project, we again see this division between assets, processes, and actors, which makes it also very complex again, because you have, of course, different data that needs to be exchanged, and you have also different kinds of stakeholders which are participating in this whole process. So the question would be then, what would be the contribution, or what is the outlook for us? We want to create, or want to, let's say, define new end-of-life processes which can be supported with BLIM and blockchain and smart contracts, which would make this, for example, the travel of the material from the deconstruction site to the new building more traceable and more transparent, in order to know what kind of urban catastrophe or mining you wouldn't have in future. Then we want to integrate different data with BIM. We also would like to have some kind of feedback loop from our data that we have collected or generated from end of life for the planning phase, for design to deconstruct, and also to develop a framework, a lifecycle-wide framework solution where we couple the findings from the previous project with actually our new project. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the early morning presentation. Also saving 4 minutes, which is quite a lot.
Ah, sorry.
So
yeah.
if you want to wrap up, I take the liberty to give you 2 more minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry, I was speaking very fast because I was looking at my watch. Yes, what I want to say is that we know we have these technologies, and the conference is all about that. And I'm sorry that I wasn't able to listen to the presentations previously because of this time difference. But what our findings are showing actually for us was we don't think the blockchain is the solution for everything or the solution for a lot of things, because we get a lot of questions. Why would you use blockchain? Because you can store data somewhere else, you can do different kinds of things. But what we definitely are thinking about is it makes these processes more transparent. It makes them really, really traceable because of this immutability of record, and because of the possibility to, let's say, find certain, for example, in the case of claim management, to find maybe the history of certain activities that are happening. And also really in the case of the end of life or recycling and reuse, it gives really the possibility to, what we are developing now, have some kind of certification of a process where you really are able to guarantee or also show that one element or one material which was in a building which has been deconstructed is really again reused or recycled in a future project. And I think this is very important. Okay, so thank you.